So the idea of political representation is that somehow the ideas, the preferences, the interests of citizens, of people, filters up to the political level, right? And there are different ways of thinking about representation. Two really main and kind of basic categories which are in conflict with each other are the trustee model and the delegate model. So the trustee model has the idea that you choose a representative and then you trust that representative to make decisions for you about what they consider to be in your best interest. The delegate model, in contrast, has the idea that you delegate your instructions to a delegate who's then tasked with basically doing what they're told. Well, one reason to care about what delegation is at the political level is about holding politicians to account. You hear often in newspapers and in public conversation, that politicians, for example, have lied about what they're going to do when they're elected. Right? But if we take the trustee model of representation, then there's not really such a thing as lying about what you're going to do. There's being entrusted with making judgments about what, in a particular circumstance which couldn't really be predicted fully, needs to be done. But if we take the delegate model, then we can hold politicians to account for doing precisely what it is that we've instructed them to do. So for fulfilling, for example, these policy platforms, if you will, on which they've been elected, because that's how it would work in practice. One way in which it applies is, for example, when you think about what kind of electoral system you live in. And in democracies, there are, broadly speaking, two different kinds of models. Now, of course, there are hundreds of different kinds of models, but two simple distinctions can be made. You can live in a proportional representation system or a single-member constituency system. Right? In the first, you basically vote for a national list, and that party will get the percentage of seats corresponding precisely to the percentage of votes. This is the system that they have in the Netherlands, for example. In a single-member constituency system, you vote regionally or locally for a representative, and then that representative represents your interests in Parliament. Right? You can imagine that in a proportional representation system, the government is going to be comprised of often several parties. There's going to be a coalition. And when there's a coalition, there's naturally going to be a renegotiation, a compromise that is reached with how to govern. These compromises are never going to correspond to the list of promises that these politicians have made, so we can't really expect the delegate model to work in that instance. It has to be something of a trustee model, right? One of the first philosophers to think a lot about justice was Plato, and he would say it doesn't relate to justice. Basically, I've introduced to you the idea of a delegate and of a trustee. Those are representation models, and Plato has the idea of an expert. He has an idea that if an expert decides basically what needs to be done, and they do that perfectly, then there's no further justice problems. Right? He's an anti-democrat in this sense. But Democrats think that there's an important aspect of justice that consists of being responsive to citizens' wishes, to their interests, to their desires. And if we have this democratic idea of justice, then it matters a lot how this relationship between the people and the political level, how that happens and how to understand that.